Okay, so welcome to my not very well lit or somewhat well lit, I guess, home office. Yay. Anyway, it's about the content, as I always say, not always the style. But I do want to give you a little bit of background for the part on storytelling, which is the Wednesday that is March 25th lecture. You'll see some stuff in the presentation over in content. But I want to give a little bit more about that. The slide right there, storytelling is powerful. If you click on that, it's an awesome presentation on storytelling by my friend Georgie Cohn. Georgie works for something called Oho Creative, one of the best content strategy firms as far as storytelling for higher ed and others. But that just goes in a lot about storytelling, and there won't be a quiz on that, but there's a little bit of bonus content there. But where storytelling is concerned with brands, again, I always tell you when you're advertising, you're telling a story. You're telling a story about your brand. And as I lament frequently when talking to you in person, that doesn't always happen because, like, you have an Old Spice. They're just trying to figure out what crazy stuff can we do, and that's where we are these days. But generally speaking, a lot of the most memorable stuff involves telling a story and how the product is the hero or the lack of the product keeps you from getting to a happy ending, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Basically, as I say in there, people don't care about your brand, but they do care about what your brand can do for you or for others. And this is a time we're seeing a lot of people, getting on the train as far as being charitable and helping others, as we should. You shouldn't need a crisis to be a brand that is interested in helping others. But it's kind of where we are right now. So it'll be really interesting to see what the next few months of advertising is, because the world has changed, and I think in large part there are going to be people who are going to look at how they can be of service, how they can make the world a better place, because we all need some help right now. Anyway, so people do care about what your brand can do for others, but they'll ultimately buy or support you if you can do something for them. Obviously, you might think, oh, this is a really great charitable company. They do great things, but I have no need for their product. I mean, I'm not going to go, run out and buy a new refrigerator just because there's a really good company, like if Westinghouse, if they even make fridges anymore, was doing some really great charitable work. I wouldn't run out there and buy a refrigerator if I don't need a refrigerator. I don't know where I'd put a second fridge, and I don't really keep that much in my fridge as it is. So that would perhaps be a waste of money and time. But ultimately, it's about finding that combination. But I'm going to talk a little bit about storytelling, culture, and tension. The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, which you'll also see in the notes, which basically has a number of steps. Joseph Campbell examined many classic texts, many of the best known books, and came back with a list of what he said things that happened. Back in English class, I learned about you had exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement, which is a fancy French word for a conclusion. That Bitter said that a story will go here, there'll be some rising action, there'll be a climax, a peak, and then it will go down toward the end, the denouement, or the conclusion of it. Campbell basically proposed something that was a lot more steps, starting with ordinary world, followed by call to adventure, followed by refusal of the call. The hero sometimes doesn't think they're a hero. The meeting with the mentor, and that could be Gandalf, or I know a lot of you have mentioned Lord of the Rings so far. Lord of the Rings, and or Star Wars. It could be Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever it is in the new sequence. But then there's crossing the first threshold, the first time that they actually become an adventurer, I guess you would call it. There's tests, allies, and enemies. Again, using the Lord of the Rings, they'll find people who work with them. They'll meet who are on their side. They'll meet enemies. Sometimes people will meet an ally. They think it's an ally and it's an enemy. Sometimes they'll meet an enemy and it turns out to be an ally. And then there's the approach, which is kind of like rising action away. There's an ordeal, that is really the struggle, the climax. It's a really, really bad ordeal. And then there's a reward at the end of it. They succeed, and then there's some kind of nominal reward. It could be spiritual, it could be mental, it could be psychological, it could be financial, it could be a number of things. Then there's the road back, which is there's falling action. It doesn't. Movies don't generally end on the high note. There's something that happens after that. There's the Resurrection Hero, which is kind of complicated, basically saying you go home and you're welcomed as a hero or something, and then Return with Elixir. That's officially going home with the cure, the solution, and this presumes a happy ending, which is not always the case. But with a lot of classic books and series, that was the case. Yeah, imagine doing that in 15 seconds or 30 seconds. It's not very easy. So I would say for a Kinetic store, you kind of pose the problem, the ordeal, whether it could be dandruff or inability to get a date, or your car gets bad gas mileage or something. And then the brand appears as a solution. It's a reward. So basically you no longer have dandruff, or you can get that date, or your car is no longer broken down on the side of the road, whatever it is. And then the problem is solved in Return with Elixir. In other words, here's the solution, this product, and here's where you can find it. So that's really the simplified version of it. Now, up next, I ask you to look at the Got Milk ad, the first ever Got Milk ad. And for those of you who know the show Hamilton, it is related to Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. It's a very, very clever ad. And the thing about it is that it withholds the reward. If you watch it, you'll see it and think, if only this guy had milk, he would, have succeeded. And I'm leaving you with a tease there. You got to go watch it. But this ad was iconic. And the Milk Board, which did the Got Milk, really was established as a brand and as a campaign to watch because of one really good ad. Again, when you're starting a campaign, the first ad is the most important. I talked about that with the Apple Mac, the 1984 commercial. Obviously, if that had been a commercial, it would not be remembered, and we don't even know how Apple would have done after that. But it was very, very important for them to start off on the right foot on the Super Bowl and air the ad only once, which was really bold move cotton, you could say. But it's pretty amazing the way that all worked out. And Got Milk, again, was a success story because it was kind of simple. There was some storytelling going on there, but it was a fact that it was not resolved in a positive way, and saying if only milk was there, milk would have been the hero. So, but again, you should go and watch that. There's a little bit of discussion there about campaigns and platforms. It's kind of, you really have to read the book a little bit more for the assignment on this one, because it's chapter 8 and chapter 9. And basically it talks about a campaign is like a movie. In other words, again, to use a Harry Potter reference, it's one of Harry Potter's movies, which would be like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That's a movie, that's a campaign. A platform is like a franchise. In other words, all things Harry Potter, everything with its own rules. Or you could say the same thing about Star Wars. Star Wars is a universe. It's its own universe with its own set of rules and, heroes and villains and what works and what doesn't work. So the idea that Sullivan would say, you want to build your own platform with your product. You have individual campaigns, as like Geico has tons of them, but what's underlying all of that? And I guess 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance. That's kind of their platform. And so that's supposed to be part of every campaign, but it's not, because it's kind of sloppy. But the idea is you get one campaign, the platform goes beyond that. And I mentioned that with the Energizer Bunny commercials. They started just with the Energizer Bunny. Then the Energizer Bunny went off the set and kept doing other things. And you'd see an ad for something you thought was not an ad for Energizer, and then suddenly it'd be still going. The Energizer Bunny would go across the screen and be like, oh. So that was really more a platform than a campaign. So a platform is basically the foundation of your brand that can go from campaign to campaign to campaign. A campaign is a traditional campaign or run of ads with similar paragraphs or, similar characters or treatment. And a lot of that would be, for example, Progressive. Progressive is still kind of doing the same thing over and over with the same characters. They've kind of outlived it by now, but there you are. But a platform really would be the underlying theme of, if all the Geico commercials were related better, they would all have the platform of 15 minutes can save you 15 cents or more on car insurance. So the characters may change, the tagline might change, but what underlies it, the basic ethos of your brand, remains. And that's kind of the basics on that. There's a nice cute link you can click that says "Send Your Hedgehog Camping," which is about it's Coleman, and it's a really, really, really cool campaign they did that it was on Instagram, and they used a mini hedgehog, and it was Azuki was his name, a tiny Japanese hedgehog who goes on camping trips, and basically Coleman decided to do a campaign with him. And it was really, really clever, and it's cute, and it's pictures of a baby hedgehog, so just go watch that one. And then we talk about truth plus conflict equal platform, which starts the truest thing you can say about your brand or the central truth. Remember, we mentioned the central truth sometimes is not what you think of, like the fact that basically having hair for men, the gray, the fact that people don't want to be gray, they want to look young, but they really, really want to be attractive to the people they want to be attracted to. So that's really more. It's really about more than gray, or that a camera is really more about memories than it is about taking pictures or megapixels or that type of thing. So if you look, basically, he talks about looking for the conflicts or tensions that happen as a result of that truth. And so basically, whether it's involving cats and dogs, or products that last forever, or the stranger side of Crocs, the shoes. And I'm not gonna go into detail in public, I guess, for that, because it's an interesting campaign that he has. But basically, read that. There's page 153 in the book. It talks about examples of how you can use truth and a conflict to make it a platform. Remember, the platform is the broader things. And basically, there's many different ways to get there. But ultimately, the story should take your user on the journey to your brand. If you take the user on a journey to someone else's brand, and this is what I always thought was a problem, because Reebok and Adidas used to do campaigns that looked exactly like Nike, and it's like, wow, look at that Nike campaign. Oh, it's Adidas, or oh, it's Reebok. You've got to be distinctive. You've got to show what you are, what you mean to people, and what your value is. And I think, unfortunately, that still gets lost. People want to do this thing. They want to just do it with their own brand. But the problem is there is already a just do it. There already is a Nike, and you cannot be Nike. So don't be Nike. But anyway, that's pretty much how that goes. It's really about taking the user on a journey, but you want to have them, the final destination, their return with Elixir, should be that they are buying your product or using your service. And then ideally a lifetime customer, and they all live happily ever after. So that's this supplemental director's cut DVD information for the lesson for Wednesday. I got to double check. I don't know what date it is anymore. Wednesday, March 25th. And then, so do that. And then there's also a discussion assignment on your favorite video ever, which we're going to talk a little bit more for Monday's class. Monday being the 30th. And hopefully you were on the discussion board and talked about your favorite story, and other people hopefully talked about their favorite stories. I've been enjoying reading and interacting with that, because there's things I've never heard of. There's things I've been curious about. And then there's stories that I know and love, and I can, share that with people. But, again, we're in a different environment here. Hopefully you get something out of discussions. Hopefully you get something out of this video, such that it is, with my cat jumping around in the background. She did not make an appearance this time, but maybe next time. She's staring at me right now. Maybe next time you'll see Coco the cat. You never know. Gives you something to look forward to. Anyway, this is Tim Neckert signing off for BRC328, and we will see you around. Take care.